Hey friends, welcome back to the channel and welcome to the first episode of Office Hours, where every Friday I'm going to gather your questions and try to give my own take or research online and give productivity advice to random strangers on the internet. If you're new to the channel, my name is Dan. I'm a productivity geek based in Lisbon. And on this channel, we explore the strategies and tools to work smarter, getting things done while having more fun. So the first question today comes from my Instagram. I asked you guys what were your biggest struggles with productivity. So the first topic that I want to talk about is how do you stick to your to-do lists? So I know very intimately this feeling of having so many items on your to-do list and not enough time to complete them all. And for me, what really helped was throughout the years, I kind of reframed the way I think about to-do lists. And now instead of thinking this is a to-do list, I approach it as a might-do list. Now, what do I mean by that? When you're creating a to-do list, there's no friction at all, it's just writing things down. Now, having no friction is very good sometimes, but when it comes to a list, what ends up happening is you just keep adding and adding and adding more stuff to that list. And because of this, what happened to me was I would end the day with more tasks on my to-do list than the number I had in the beginning of the day. And I know you also know this feeling. You're working at your desk, a task comes up, just add it to your to-do list. You're midway working through a task, something comes to your mind, and you write it down on your notebook or even in a to-do list app. But here's the problem. These tasks are not associated with time. You're just writing it down and then simply trying to get one at a time. Even if you try to organize to the best of your ability your to-do list, so you put the most important items on the top and then everything below is not top priority, it ends up becoming a little bit of a mess at the end of the day. So here's what I did to change my relationship with tasks. If there is a specific time and location for a task, I'll create a new appointment in my calendar. So for example, today I had to shoot this video. This is in my calendar, so I have to do it at this specific time. But most of the things that you write in your to-do list, they don't have to happen at a specific time and location. They're just things that eventually you might need to get to. And so what I do at the beginning of the day is I look at my calendar. I look at everything that I have to do that is already blocked in it. And then I try to see, okay, apart from those tasks, how much time do I have left for everything else? And then I go into my to-do list that is now just a big brain dump of everything that I need to do. And I try to pick out maybe one or two activities that I do actually have the time on that day to complete. So yes, now my to-do list has hundreds and hundreds of items. And for me, this is still a little bit hard because I get a little bit of OCD when I look at it. But again, there's only so much time that you have. If you schedule your priorities, at least the most important work is being done. And then it's just a matter of trying to do the best that you can with the limited time that you have left, and try to do maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 if you have more time of those tasks in your list. So it's a very simple reframing, a might-do list, but at the same time is very powerful because now you really need to think about what do you want to have in your calendar, and then if you have some time left, what are the most important items that you can complete today from that list. And again, the friction is non-existent. If I'm in the middle of a task and I remember something that I need to do, I'll just add it to that list. And this new reframing also uncovered something that I wasn't expecting, which is some of the tasks that you add to your list obsolete, you don't need to do them anymore, or they're not part of your priorities at this moment. And so what ends up happening is at any given moment, you have probably 5 to 10 tasks that you really have to do, but the rest of it kind of doesn't fit into the flow of your work anymore. So yeah, that's my very long-winded way of saying you should work from your calendar and then see how much time you have left and try to do something from your might to-do list. The second question that we have today is from one of my favorite subreddits, /productivity. The question is, does anyone constantly save posts and screenshots, but they never do the work or take action? So first of all, yes, I've been that person before. So I know that feeling. I know that pain of just feeling like you're doing some kind of work, but at the end, you're not using the information that you're consuming. The way that I did this before, instead of even screenshotting, is I would save everything in my bookmarks. So for example, if I was reading a lot of articles online, but I didn't really have the time at that moment to spend reading those articles, I would just save them in my bookmarks. And then hopefully then from the future would have all the time in the world to check all those amazing articles. Now, as weeks and weeks went by and I didn't clean that folder, I started to get very anxious of all the things that I was missing out, of the things that I was supposed to be reading, supposed to be watching, supposed to be consuming. And over the years, I tried to tame that problem in the way that I would save better so that I would still have the time later to consume it. Nowadays, I think of this in a very different way. And there are 2 main points to this. The first one, you're never gonna have enough time to consume everything that you want. Now, the minute that you realize there's only so much time that you have to consume things, it becomes a freeing thought. So how exactly did that change me? Whereas before, I would try to save everything that I thought was useful or even just interesting, and then I had to come back in the future and do double check if that was a reality. Nowadays, I'm much more critical. I think a lot more about the things that I want to save. Instead of doing one decision now, I'm going to save, and then later I need to check it again if that's useful, Now I think in the lens of then from the future. Is this something that I'm gonna need to read at some time? Or is this just pure entertainment? Is there something actionable that I'm gonna take out of it that I can use in my work or in my personal life? So by just reframing, thinking of those two questions on my mind, as I'm engaging with a piece of content, and that could be a podcast, that could be an article, that could be a video, I end up saving a lot less. Yes, maybe I want to learn more about SEO, but is this something that I need in my life right now? Because the moment that I need to learn more about SEO, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna open Google, I'm gonna open YouTube, and I'm just gonna search for that topic. So now I only try to save things that are truly remarkable, incredible posts that I wanna save for my life, or something that is very actionable for my life or for my work right now. Everything else, yes, they might come handy in the future, but there will be time to rediscover that when you need it the most. And finally, when I'm engaging with a piece of content, I always think, who is the creator and am I a fan of his work already? So for example, if I'm searching for something on SEO, I'm gonna look for the sources that I like the most before. And then I'm gonna really question the new sources that I bring into my life. Now, is this gonna create a little bit of a bubble for you because now you're just following the people that you already know? Yes, and also no. What that means is that the barrier for new content to enter your life, the barrier of how amazing that information needs to be, is a lot higher. But also what ends up happening is that when you discover a new person that has an amazing content, you're gonna binge watch or binge read all of his other content because odds are that's also going to be amazing. So that's how I think about saving things and not using them. The final piece of the puzzle for me is interconnecting everything into one app, and that for me is Rome Research. So whenever I come across something that is super incredible or actionable to my life and work, I immediately save it to Instapaper, make some highlights on it, and then I will export it to Rome Research. And then inside Rome, I'm able to do all these connections between other things that I've saved in the past and how that connects to all the information that I've consumed before. And so that eventually leads me to see all the connections that I can make and all the things that I can do with that kind of information. So that's what I think about it. And now let's move on to question 3, and this is about procrastination. Here we go. Why do I procrastinate when the pain of not doing it is worse than actually doing the work? And I must admit, this is a very interesting question. And this is a very general question, so it's kind of hard to give a one-size-fits-all solution, but I'm going to do my best. I'm going to talk about what works for me. So if I have some kind of task that I'm procrastinating on, for example, recording videos, and that task is very important to me, and also not doing it gives me like anxiety, there's a couple of solutions that for me personally normally work. The first one is taking atomic steps. So again, for example, if I need to record videos and I've been procrastinating for too long, and it's the case for this video actually, what I do is I just try to move in the general direction of that task. So for videos specifically, this could mean setting up the lamp, setting up the camera, setting up the microphone, getting everything in place, the lamps behind me, just making sure that all I have to do is sit down, press record, and just go. So that is the first solution that I use, probably the one that I use the most. Atomic steps. What can you do to make sure that the friction of getting started is almost zero? Yes, I know I'll stumble in the beginning of the video, maybe it takes 10 minutes to get into the flow. But at the same time, I don't have to do all the extra work of getting prepared to get started. And if that doesn't work, what I like to do as a power up of that strategy is set a timer for 2 minutes and just do what I can in those 2 minutes. So for example, let's say I need to write an article and I've been procrastinating on getting started. And this is giving me a lot of anxiety. So I open up the text editor and I remove the friction to get started. Then I put a timer for 2 minutes and I just write for 2 minutes. It's going to be extremely horrible, but at least I'm getting started on a task, because the motivation to keep going on a task comes after the action, not before. You don't need motivation to get into action, you need action to get motivated. And what that means is that after writing for 2 minutes, yes, it's not easy, but it's a lot easier. So what can you do in your task that you've been procrastinating to get started and just get moving in a general right direction? If we're talking about a project and not a one-off video or article, what I like to do is break down the project as much as I can and then think of what is the one easiest task that I can complete right now. And most of the times when I start a project, actually, I'll do all the tasks in order and I'll hit a point where I'm just procrastinating, and then I'll skip, if possible, to that task. I've read a long time ago that this is something that writers actually do. So they know the climax of the story, right? And the climax is near the end of the story. And so they'll start in the beginning of the story and just write pages and pages, and at some point they might be procrastinating either because they don't know where the story is going or they just don't want to write that anymore. And so a very productive thing that they can do at that moment is jump to the climax. Because the climax, you're always excited about getting started, because you already know what's going to happen. This is the end of your story, and it's very easy to think in the beginning how the story is going to end. What is hard is to write everything leading up to that moment, the character development, what's going to happen, how they're going to move, all of that. And so you can translate that to projects. You already know what's the end result of the project, where you want to go, and you know that the last steps are going to be the most satisfying. Why? Because those are the ones where you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. So yeah, you can start in the beginning, but if at some point you're going to hit a roadblock, you don't want to do it anymore, just jump to the part that is most exciting. That's the climax of your project. Then there's two other things that really work for me. The first is to make sure that there are not a lot of distractions around me, either that's the phone or by the computer. So for example, hiding your bookmarks is one of them, working in full screen mode, making sure that your phone is far away from you, so there is no temptation to be distracted. Because if there's something near you that you can be distracted with, odds are that your brain, if it's procrastinating, it will just pick it up. It will just find a way to be distracted. So just sit down and make sure there's nothing around that can distract you. Easier to say, but a little bit harder to execute. You don't need to do it all the time. You just need to really do it when you're really procrastinating. The second thing is about accountability. Now, I work from home and that's just me at this desk. And because of that, it's very easy for me to fool myself, because I'm both the boss and the employee. The boss always wants to get things done. He's a very optimistic boss, then optimistic guy. Employee, then very motivated guy, until he's not. And so what ends up happening sometimes is that there's kind of a gap between what boss me wants to achieve, knows that needs to get done, and what employee then wants to do. And so at that time, it really helps me to bring some kind of accountability. So for me, that could mean a meeting with someone from my team, and just seeing the other person on the other side of the screen brings in a little bit of pressure for me to be sitting down and not procrastinate. And you can do this with friends, either with Zoom sessions, or if you want, just join them to study, join them to work in a co-working environment or something like that. So if you bring just a little bit of accountability, that pressure of having someone, even if they're not really looking at you, you kind of feel that you need to do the work because there's someone kind of spying on you. And so that's it. That's the end of the first episode of Office Hours. If you want to ask me a question, there's something that you're struggling with, productivity, procrastination, time management, please reply in the comments your question, and I'll make sure that I'll choose the best ones to feature in future episodes of Office Hours. And if you're still here, that means you really like this video, so hit that like button so you tell the algorithm that this is a nice video and other people can discover it. And after that, what you can do is just watch my next video on my 4-step system to stop procrastinating. In that video, I talk about my system to break down procrastination. So go watch it right now, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.